Hi and welcome to Z Games. Recorded live at 4ZZZ Studios in Brisbane and broadcast nationally over the Community Radio Network, Z Games brings you the latest gaming news, reviews and interviews from across Australia and around the world.
Hey there, what is up? This is Z Games. You're listening on Triple Z live, or maybe you're listening around Australia on the Community Radio Network, or you could be listening also on Z Digital each Friday at 7 p.m, or streaming online for triplezfm.org.au.
Is this why I always do these?
I was just going to say, this is why Lee always brings us in.
Oof.
Wherever you are, welcome. Welcome to Z Games. And I'm your lovable host. And I don't really waste words that much.
Who are you? This is Razor.
He's wasting a lot of words.
It's me, Razor, and joining me as always is the lovely Miss Candy Payne.
Hi.
Mr. Lee.
Hey.
He's the guy with the wit. And Mr. Jody McGregor.
Hello.
He's the one with the charm.
Yes, he's the guy I like.
Oof.
What have I done wrong?
As always, we'll be talking about video games and computer games and games of all sorts. Specifically this week, we'll be talking about Monster Hunter 4, right, Lee?
That's right, yes. We are the Japanese phenomenon Monster Hunter has hit our shores at last.
Last week we spoke to Morgan Jaffet of Defiant Development about Hand of Fate, and this week we'll be telling you all about the game. Also, the Game Developers Conference is happening this week in San Francisco, and there's plenty of news that was dropped on us, so here's Ms. Candy Payne with some of the highlights.
Thank you, Razor. Sony's virtual reality headset, called Project Morpheus, will launch in the first half of 2016, according to an announcement made at the Game Developers Conference this week. The proposed final specs for the device were also revealed, including a 5.7-inch OLED display, a 120Hz refresh rate, and head tracking latency of 18 milliseconds. More information was revealed about Valve's VR headset. The device is called the Vive and is being manufactured by phone maker HTC. The device will feature full room scale, allowing the user's position to be tracked around the room.
Oh, Jody just showed me that his phone is an HTC. So based on that
That's
build
great.
quality...
Yeah. It's very robust. So I guess if you drop the Vive, it won't break.
If you drop it in the toilet, it'll be fine.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a plus.
the room tracking thing is a fun feature if you have an entire warehouse available.
Yeah, you need about 15 feet, apparently.
Yes.
Square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then you can walk around in your virtual headset and actually be tracked by the game in the game.
Yeah, what I liked about the little tiny demo of the Vive that I saw was that it was showing hand tracking and manipulation. So it wasn't a game being played on a controller or with a keyboard and mouse. It was someone who was maybe holding some kind of hand tracking thing or wearing a glove, or I don't know, or maybe it just tracks your hand. They weren't showing that. They were showing what you see in the game, and it was someone actually picking up and interacting with objects in a way that you don't see in any of the games we've seen so far on the Oculus Rift.
That was one thing that was weird about the Oculus, was looking down and expecting to see my hands and body there, and they weren't there. So that's what they need to do now, is put my hands into the game. Yeah.
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 You need to be able to touch and squeeze things.
Yeah.
Steam creator Valve and video card manufacturer Nvidia have both revealed set-top boxes. Nvidia's Shield will be an Android-based device that allows users to stream PC games to their television set when paired with an Nvidia-powered PC. The Shield will have access to the Google Play Store, and a specially curated Shield section of the store will feature Android titles that are controller-compatible. The Shield will launch in May for $199. Valve's product is called the Steam Link and acts as a set-top box to stream PC games from a PC to a television. The Steam Link will launch in November for $49.
So I'm glad that Nvidia have decided to get into the kind of goofy Android console market, because someone needs to get in there and knock Ouya off that pedestal, right? They've just been raking in the success for a couple of years now. There needs to be some competition there. Someone jump in here.
I sense sarcasm, Lee.
Maybe.
I don't feel like we are the audience for this.
Who is?
I don't know, but I hope that it's somebody else.
Yeah, I liked that their presentation included them talking about how it was more powerful than the Xbox 360. We have consoles like that already that have a built-in market, and there are games that are presumably coming out for those.
One of the things that I heard from games journalists at GDC who won't shut up about it on Twitter for the last several days has been how weird it is that no one's talking about the Xbox One or the PS4. Even when people are talking about the history of console development, it stops at the 360.
Yeah.
Like, that's the peak. And nobody mentions what happened afterwards. Just like this blank spot in history that we're not ready to talk about yet.
Presumably Sony at least are talking about it, since like their whole Morpheus thing plugs into it. Well, it will next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But otherwise, Nvidia are not acknowledging the fact that this thing has come out now. Yeah.
I'm not so excited about that Nvidia Shield. To echo Lee's
Really?
thoughts, I mean, the set-top box space is really crowded now. There's a lot of options out there, and Steam's $50 offering actually seems okay. I mean, the price is low, and it sort of has a function there, but the $200 Shield, I mean, like Lee said, who's going to buy that thing? It just seems like a waste of resources to me.
They announced that Doom 3 would be coming out for it.
Oh, good.
Well, that's exciting, right? Remember Doom 3?
No.
That's pretty good.
Valve has revealed Source 2, the successor to the Source game engine. Games built using the original Source engine include Valve's own Half-Life 2, Counter-Strike, Source and Left 4 Dead, as well as third-party titles like Titanfall and The Stanley Parable. Source 2 will be available free to content developers. Free.
That's nice. It's free, but you have to pay 5% of revenue.
So not really free.
So, pseudo-free.
Is that Source, or was that the
So is
Unreal
that
engine?
Unreal 4?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Unreal. Yeah.
Oh, I'm getting my engines confused.
Yeah, you're jumping ahead in news
Yeah.
article as well.
Ah, that's a much better deal then.
Yeah.
Well, Source was the engine that was also used for Vampire the Masquerade's Bloodlines, as well as the Stanley Parable. I can't think of any two more different games
Yeah.
than the one where you're a vampire who drinks people's blood in nightclubs, and the one where you're an office worker being taunted by an omniscient narrator.
There's that whole haunted mansion level of vampire,
Right.
which sort of counts.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, ghosts, torment. Work with me here, Jody.
Jody's just ready for the next article. Unreal Engine 4 will be free for anyone to use. This includes all future updates. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney wrote on the company blog today, "The state of Unreal is strong, and we've realised that as we take away barriers, more people are able to fulfil their creative visions and shape the future of the medium we love. That's why we're taking away the last barrier to entry and going free." Jody.
So there
What
is
I've heard.
Yeah.
there's an
Is that
asterisk.
apparently-
Yeah.
Breaking news here, 5% of revenue is what you actually have to pay.
Yes, and it's all revenue as well, not just like game sales. So that if you have merchandise, they get all of that as well, which might not seem significant, but you know, if they were getting like 5% of Minecraft money, it's a lot of money in
Have
foam
you seen
swords
the
and
Minecraft
things.
novels that they're selling
Yes.
now? What is that about?
I have no idea.
There's like an entire series of them. There's 4 or 5 of those things.
There's a lot of like, is it a choose your own adventure?
No, it's just like young adult stories about a kid who gets sucked into Minecraft and then has to live in that world.
Oh
What?
man.
Oh, right. And finally, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain now has a release date of the 1st of September 2015.
Cool.
That'll
Yeah.
be good. Hey, that's also when the Mad Max game comes out.
Sweet.
So, you know, probably take that day off.
Yeah, this is a great year for game releases.
Every
This-
year is.
But this one especially. I'm looking forward to the Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, even though I kind of ragged out on Ground Zeroes for being a bit too short. The mechanics there were just pretty awesome. The open world stealth thing hasn't really been done as well as that until then, so if the Phantom Pain is as big as Hideo Kojima says it is, we're looking at a really awesome game here.
You get to ride a horse.
Yep. And you get to be Kiefer Sutherland,
That's always good.
always.
And now, Lee, you have been playing the new Monster Hunter game, which is, I think, Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate.
Yes.
You're up to now on the 3DS, and you got a fancy new new 3DS.
I did get the new 3DS. I
Good
did.
for you.
Yeah.
I'm not jealous at all.
It's nice.
Tell me how amazing it is.
It's really nice. Like, it feels slightly better than the old 3DS. It has an extra little nub on it to control the camera. That's good. Apparently it's better inside. Graphics look a bit better on it than on
And
the
it's
old
bigger
one.
as well.
It's the same size.
Oh, they don't do the XL here, do
No,
they?
no, I've got the XL.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
What color is it?
it's gunmetal black, actually.
La-di-da.
Oh, la dee da.
That was the only one they had left in the store. So,
Huh.
that's
They've been
what,
selling quite well.
yeah. No, it's a cool little toy. I wish that the original one was this one, because then I wouldn't have had to go through the process of transferring over my stuff, and that's an ordeal. But not the point of this segment, which
Tell
is
us about Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate.
yeah, Monster Hunter is a game by Capcom. They have made a bunch of them. They are huge in Japan and have been not so much big in the rest of the world. They haven't quite penetrated the market in a mainstream fashion as much as this one has, actually, which seems to be a pretty big hit. Like, this is the one that is finally not as inscrutable as all of the others, because you would think it's a simple concept. You are a hunter. You leave your little village, go out into the wilderness. There are giant dinosaurs roaming around that you hit to death with a stick. They fight you. Like, it's rough.
Yeah, isn't one of them like a land shark thing or something?
Every single one of them is a land shark thing.
Cool.
Every single one is like 9 times as big as you, colorful, screaming, and takes like 20 minutes to beat to death. Like, that's what it is. It is a fight where you are moving around a massive map, chasing this giant hell beast as it kicks the crap out of you until you eventually, like, wheedle its health down enough that it runs back to where it wants to, where its nest is. And then you interrupt it while it's napping its wounds off to finish it off. And then when it's dead, you carve bits off it to make new weapons and armor that look like the beast that you just slew. So that...
You kill it and then you wear its face.
Yes, as pants. Or as a sword. So that is, I have described most video games there, but this gets rid of all of the other guff and makes everything hard and important. So you'll get a mission that says, hey, find this rare, awful dinosaur that's making it difficult for me to bring my snacks into the village, and then you will go out into this map that you've probably explored a couple of times before. Each mission will add like a bit more complexity or a bit more understanding for you about how this map works, until by the time you get to the later missions in a space, you sort of know how the environments work and can utilize that in your hunt. So then you go out, and then, when you encounter something for the first time, it is thrilling and terrifying because everything has its own unique attack patterns and its unique behaviors. So, like the giant bat monkey thing that looks a bit like Robin Williams' character in Fern Gully.
Oh, Betty Coda.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
love that movie.
It's like one of those, except psychotic and giant and murderous.
Oh, well, he was psychotic
Yeah,
in
yeah.
that film.
Well, this is murderous and giant as well. So you
Aw.
fight one of those things, and it'll like flap around, and then it'll just hang from the vines overhead as it like swings around trying to get you, and then it might stop and just spit mucus at you. Why not? Then it goes crazy. And like every monster will have a bunch of different attack patterns and different behaviors that you have to recognize as you figure out how you kill this thing. And then once you kill it, get better pants, so then you can go and kill the next thing. The whole thing is just about wearing the pants of the thing that you've killed so that you're strong enough to go out and kill the next thing to get its skin for pants or swords. Mm-hmm. It's a video game. But it's very fun once you start getting to grips with it. I've tried to play them in the past because everyone says they're great, and I like hard games about killing monsters. But this thing, part of what makes it annoying and compelling at the same time is that you kind of wrestle with the controls as you play. The camera is slow and sluggish. Your moves are quite slow. It's all about being able to position yourself correctly to get off one good attack and then running away a bit. So you can't just go in there and thrash about and be successful for too long. Like, you will, if you don't work out how to get good at the game, you will die, and it will be embarrassing because Robin Williams from Fern Gully will have killed you.
Oh. When is this set?
It's sort of a prehistoric pseudo like medieval kind of thing. It's it's Japanese and anime-ish.
Yeah.
So it's just there are wagons and like there are guns that you have. One of the weapons you can have is a lance with a gun on the end of it, but it's still made out of dinosaur skin stretched over bones. So you tell me when it's set.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting guns. When you said clobbering, I was picturing a caveman running around.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then-
See, it mostly is like you're just clobbering them with swords and sticks. My weapon of choice at the moment is the insect glaive, which is a staff with a sword on the end of it that you can use to pole vault onto the monster's back. That also comes with a weird insect that you send out to suck the essence out of the monster, which then flies back and gives you buffs and enchantments.
What?
I don't know. It's from Japan.
Actually, what? I don't even...
You have an insect as well.
No, I mean, I heard it,
Yeah.
but then you got to the sucking the essence out. I was like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, and you've got to, like,
I'm
before that
lost.
happens, you have to shoot, like, a pheromone onto the beast, which is hard because it moves around. And where you hit it on the beast's body, I'm doing a gesture right now, listeners, that you can't see, where I'm indicating on the dinosaur where you've hit it.
Like pinning the tail on the donkey.
Yeah, like you hit it in the
Got it.
legs, you get a speed boost. You hit it in the head, generally it's like a combat boost. There are other things as well. There are like 4 different ones, and then you can combine them. It is crazy
Wow.
complicated.
I feel like evolution would have been significantly different if we could have sucked the essence out of dinosaurs with insects.
That's true. That's true.
This
I
is
mean,
weird.
but then you just described the plot to Jurassic Park, so
Well, that wasn't the essence. That was like,
it was the DNA, which
DNA.
I think you'll find is what we would consider the essence.
oh really? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh no, I thought you meant like the spirit or the, its
spirit?
energy or
Just
it's
the general
something.
vibe.
Yeah.
It's vibe.
Yeah.
Jesus, I don't know.
Yeah.
So what I have heard about this game is that it also has cute animal sidekicks.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Oh wait,
This
what?
sounds like an important selling point
Yeah.
to us.
So you, when you design your character at the start of the game, you also get to design your cat friend, who is your palico. There's a pun. Get it? Calico, pal, palico, calico cat. It's a type of cat.
Okay.
Keep up.
Never had a
Tell us
cat
about-
in my life.
tell us about
Don't
Palico.
care for
So your
them.
palico is an adorable cat that runs around with you on its hind legs, like throwing boomerangs and hitting it with weapons and stuff. And when you get like knocked out, the cat runs over and picks you back up and puts you back on your feet. If it's good, if it's rubbish, it's just like gonna keep throwing boomerangs while you are just useless on the ground and a 50-foot spider is slowly advancing towards you. Thanks a lot, Stretch. But so you've got your cat, and then if you play with other people, you can enlist their cats to come along with you. Then you've got 2 cats that join you out in the field using their various skills and weapons and what have you. You also have a pet pig for some reason that just hangs out at home base. And I showed you this last week.
Yeah, so the pig looked pretty cool.
Yeah, like all you do, you can pat the pig for some reason and dress it up. I don't know why. But if you take the pig outside, you can then get your cat to just ride around on the pig for no reason except why would you not do that all the time?
Every part of me just thinks this is all rubbish and you were hallucinating and or telling us a weird dream you had last night because I'm
No, I
so
saw
confused.
that cat ride the pig.
Yeah.
It looked like that monkey on the internet.
Yes, it's just like that. Yeah. No, most of the game is about like wandering out into the wilderness and encountering giant monsters that try to eat you while you try to bash them to death with sticks made
With
out
a
of
cat
their friends.
sidekick.
Cat's there as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And so are other people. You mentioned multiplayer.
Yeah, you can play either locally or over the internet. The single player is separate from the multiplayer. Your equipment carries over, but your missions don't. And there's a whole different set of missions, and it is like even more difficult and complicated then, because of course when you're swinging your weapons around, ordinarily you don't have to worry about anyone else, but suddenly if there are 4 other people there with you, and your weapon is one that does big, wide things, knocking your friends over, they will not care for that at all.
No.
So
That's a faux pas.
yeah, it is, especially when it comes to monster hunting. So there's a great deal of coordination involved. You can pre-plan stuff. You can make traps that will stun monsters or put them to sleep. You can paralyze them with enhancements that you put on your weapons. You can put down bombs and put down like poisoned meat or drugged meat as a lure. There's this whole crafting subsystem that isn't just about the equipment. It's also the things that you take into the field. So it's all about being prepared. So not only are you a hunter, you're also really Batman as well, because you have to go in with a set amount of gear and know what you want to take in, because once you're out there, if you don't have the right tool, you could get screwed.
Right.
Have you actually tried the multiplayer very much? Is it easy to find people to play with?
There are people to play with. It's a bit difficult if you don't have a group ready to go. I have people who are going to be able to play soon, but I've not actually been able to sit down with cool people yet, which I'm really looking forward to. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I'll be able to talk about that later on.
Do you ever come up against hordes of monsters, or is it kind of one at a time? You're specifically hunting out one to get to the next level, or are they just you turn a corner and suddenly they're all there in a paddock eating?
Yeah. So the big monsters will be a separate hunting event, but they'll still be in these massive environments where there are just other monsters roaming around, other dinosaurs. So there are a lot of velociraptor-sized beasts of different sizes that will just be there roaming about until they see you, and then they want to try and devour you. You'll have early missions when you're new to an area where you just have to go out and get 5 of them. There are insect beasts. There are weird giant dodo things where you don't have to kill them, but you do have to hit them from behind so that they get surprised enough that they lay an egg.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have to run that egg all the way back to the start of the mission. And if you run too fast and stop, sometimes the egg will break. If you get hit, the egg will break. Egg-carrying missions are the worst. And they're almost like a joke that's been included. Everyone hates them, but they keep putting them in.
What's the reward?
Nothing good.
So why do you take it all the way back to the start of the mission? Is that your camp or something?
Yeah, your camp is there, so you have to take them back to the storage
other
box.
People? Oh, well, your storage. Right, okay.
Yeah. There are rare things that you can receive to make special egg-centric gear if you want to be a weirdo. But no, it's a perversion. Don't do the egg missions, people.
It sounds like a very mechanically rich game, but is there an overarching story that ties all this together?
Yeah, so you're part of a caravan traveling through this weirdo land, and stuff happens as you move along. It's not particularly involving. Your personal story is just that you're there to help people as you go out gathering bits off of dead monsters.
So you're a gypsy from the prehistoric medieval age.
Yes.
Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
That's right. At the moment, I have just helped my crew build a giant whale-shaped boat because the captain has this weird artifact that he doesn't know what it is.
The dodo egg.
It's it's just it looks like a shell or a gem. He's very excited about it, but every time I bash a dinosaur to death, I pull off way more interesting looking things than that thing. I could have just as many mysteries to solve, I don't get what's so special about this glittering hand-sized green gem. No one seems that interested in it. It doesn't do anything. I hope it's good. I hope it plugs into something valuable. But it's just an excuse for me to keep going out and hitting larger and larger beasts, really.
If you just joined us, we're talking about Monster Hunter 4 for the 3DS. Now, Lee, you played it on your new 3DS, which is the new console with an analog nub and a couple of extra shoulder buttons.
Yeah.
For those people who are listening that don't have the new 3DS, and I'm guessing the majority of 3DS owners have the old one, is this a playable game? Because it is in the third person, and there is a camera control that is useful. So what about for those guys?
Yeah, so if you don't have the Wii camera nubbin that comes on the new 3DS, then you can use the directional pad. There's also a button that refocuses your view onto the monster that you're hunting. And that all seems fine enough. I tried it out on my old 3DS, and it's fine. Most of the game is about deliberately wrestling with the camera anyway, so I think that unless you're doing something like there are the weapons that involve a lot more aiming, like the long-ranged ones, they would be probably a great deal more annoying to use. But I think that for most of the arsenal, you would be perfectly fine to play with. Yeah.
Cool. Any other closing remarks you'd like to say about Monster Hunter 4?
Look, if you are interested in games that demand a bit of work to get into them, if you like if you're into boss fights that are fun but then rewarding once you've worked them out, then Monster Hunter is definitely something that you might be interested in. Like I enjoy it for the same reason that I get into Dark Souls, but also for the same reason that I enjoy a lot of MMOs where you have complicated battles to mechanically work out and then take the rewards from that to craft something unique and interesting to you. Just the fact that everything that you have conquered, you basically can wear on you as a badge of honor and then show to other people. That's a really cool idea. Like every new piece of equipment that you've got based on that other thing is unique and present, and that's like you end up looking crazy a lot of the time, but
That's how cavemen picked up back in the day, isn't it?
that is pretty much it. Yeah. Yeah.
Lee, thank you very much for that review of Monster Hunter 4. You're listening to Z Games. Let's get into our next review, which is Hand of Fate, which was released 2 weeks ago for the PC. It was put out by Defiant Development, who are a local studio here in Brisbane, and they kickstarted that. They just crossed the line of $50,000 back in late 2013, and it's one of the Kickstarter success stories, unlike a lot of the Kickstarter failure stories that we've been hearing a lot about on the internet. So Jody, Lee and I have been playing that game. Jody?
I've put a lot of hours into Hand of Fate. It's like playing a choose-your-own-adventure book. That's what it reminds me of the most. Only instead of having a book that you flip between the pages of, following a storyline where you get to choose whether you go left or right, or fight the goblin, or bribe the guard at the city gates, you have those experiences written down on a deck of cards that are randomly dealt to you, so you get a different experience every time that you play. And while you're playing, you're sitting across a table from a mysterious dealer who magically shuffles the cards, and they fly around in some really neat and pretty looking patterns. And as you're playing and you're getting all of these sort of fantasy quests given to you on the cards, he's there to mock you, and that really adds to it in a way that, like, there are a lot of choose-your-own adventures that I've been playing that have been turned into video games, like Forest of Doom and things like that, the old fantasy novels and Lone Wolf novels. You can get some neat video game versions of them for your phone now. But this adds a lot more personality to it by actually having a character who's sitting there with you and interacting. He doesn't just read out what's written on the cards and what you have to do next. He's actually having a conversation. Well, it's a one-sided conversation, but he's there to taunt you, and every now and then to say that you've earned his respect or something like that, which ridiculously makes me feel like I finally made it. This video game character with a deep voice and a hood thinks I finally made it because I did a good thing in his imaginary game.
Your relationship with him changes over the course of the game, which I like. Like, initially he's just like, you're rubbish like everyone else. Don't even try. And then you start to do okay. And then he kind of, it's not so much that he's, glad that it's happening, but he sort of thinks that maybe you're the one chimp that has figured out how the machine works, or you're the one rat smart enough to get through the maze. He's like, that's adorable that you can do this. And then as you get better again, he starts to get really annoyed because suddenly you're the rat that is now starting to outsmart him at his own game that he has made, and how dare you do this? Do you know how much trouble I've gone to put these cards together? He said that to me the other day. He was like, don't you realize like the effort that I put into this? And I was like, I can tell, but I'm still winning.
That gives a really satisfying narrative arc to a game that is randomly generated. Like, you sit down and every time you play, you're getting these experiences in a different order. You can see on the table in front of you, there's a little miniature representing you, and it hops from card to card, and every now and then the cards split, and you can go left to right, and each one flips over as you land on it, and then fills the screen and tells you what happens here. But in a lot of sort of roguelike kind of games that are out at the moment, the randomness just makes them feel a bit hollow, because you're having the same experiences each time you play in a slightly jumbled up order, but that jumbling up doesn't always make them feel fresh enough. You can see the threads, you can see like, oh, it's this thing that I've done a million times before. But having him sitting there slowly revealing more and more information about what's happening and slowly changing how he feels about you. He's also got this weird thing where there's a mystery to why the game exists that he slowly hints at, and just these little things he says that give you ideas about like how old this game and what it means to play it is, and whether dying in the game means you die in real life. It's all ridiculous stuff, but it really adds a lot of atmosphere to what's mechanically quite simple.
It's like Jumanji.
I was
exactly
just
like
going to say, it's just like Jumanji.
Yeah, I was surprised actually that the story does seem to come through in such subtle ways in the way that his remarks change. There are also cards that you seemingly are just throwaway things early on in the game that then there are, like, later on down the track you'll get additional cards that then build on that narrative. There's a whole thing with a ghost that I was surprised that they would even go to that trouble, and yet it adds so much additional depth and value to that playthrough to make it something that, the idea that there's a mystery to a board game that you're playing against a mysterious guy who is also a magical, mysterious man is like fantastic and adds so much more to that experience than something that just randomized stuff happens and then you fight a rat.
Yeah. We should talk about the cards.
Yeah.
They are really nicely drawn, for starters. There's black and white artwork at the top of each one that looks like something out of a really old book of fairy tales or something. And each one of them, like, say, one of them is the river card, and you have the option of trying to swim across the river or heading downstream and trying to find a bridge. And if you do something that has a bit of risk to it, like trying to swim across the river, there's like a 4-card Monty game that plays out. The dealer draws a bunch of success and failure cards and shows them to you, and then flips them upside down and then shuffles them around like a blackjack dealer, and you have to pick one of them.
Ooh.
Yeah. It adds a lot of, again, more investment to it, because suddenly you think that maybe this is something that you can game, and you can initially.
I'm convinced that I can and will not hear a word against it, but
No, later on it gets impossible to track and you're a crazy person.
Okay.
Yeah. We should hear the fights.
We haven't
discussed
mentioned those yet. As well as the cards in the deck that represent things like rivers or a bunch of goblins who are going to steal from you, or gamblers that you meet, there are 4 suits of monster cards. There's dust for bandits, bones for skeletons, scales for sort of dragony lizard people, and plague for rat people, who look like the Skaven from Warhammer.
They really do.
They're really neat.
Yeah.
And when you have an encounter that means having to fight someone, the dealer and the world around him fades away, and your little mohawked hero guy and his axe or whatever card with a weapon on it you've got appears, and you have these third-person action sequences that play out like the Batman Arkham games, or a few games have borrowed this really neat combat system. I think Shadow of Mordor recently had something similar, where you have the option to counter someone when you see them attacking you. Like, a thing appears over their head and you press Y, and then you can bash them with your shield or duck under their sword and get a blow in. So, as well as you have to time your attacks carefully so that you can build up a combo, but you also have the option, if someone is about to attack you, of turning that attack against them, and it adds a really neat rhythm to fights because instead of being the combat system where blocking someone's attack means you don't get to attack, it means you do, just causing slightly less damage, so you're never not doing something cool. You're always spinning around and bopping somebody over the head with a magic axe in a way that looks neat.
Yeah.
Or whacking them with your shield or whatever.
They're really quite mobile, fast-paced fights as well. You have to be rolling around a lot. The environments often are filled with traps that attack
I hate
both.
the traps.
They get your opponents just as often as they get you.
Yeah, you can smack a guy with a shield and then he'll fall into like some bushes that a huge spike trap leaps out of. That's satisfying.
That's very good. And the fights, like each enemy type will have a slightly different behavior attached to it as well. So there'll be rats that throw poison at you from afar, and the skeletons and the lizardmen are able to block your attacks and even block your counters, and there are, fireball throwing wizards and all sorts of crazy things to deal with. So the fights are good in that not only are they break the whole thing up, but they're also short enough so that they don't get too tedious. I think if there were too many of them, it might be a bit much. But the other great thing about them is that at the start of them, the cards that you've got for all of your equipment and for all of your player stats fly in and land on the ground, and all the stuff that you've got comes up out of it. So the card for your sword will shoot in, and then your sword will appear in your character's hand, and their helmet and all of this stuff. So they will equip themselves with the things that you've had as cards. They're suddenly a 3D object on your guy, which makes gathering new equipment very, very satisfying as well, because now you've got this cool wizard hat that blocks things for whatever reason. So
Yeah.
And then another card will fly out, like the Six of Bones will fly across to the other side of the battlefield, and then 6 skeletons spring up out of it, and then they try to murder you.
Yeah, it's an interesting use of the cards. I like, in games like Magic the Gathering, it's really cool to see how they tie the mechanics in with the flavor of the card. Like, if there was an ice sword card, it would be like whenever this ice sword card is equipped to someone and attacks, it slows them down for 1 turn, and it's like +3 attack. But in Hand of Fate, the ice sword is actually an ice sword that your character has, and when you hit people with it, it slows people down and it shoots out icy blasts as well. So it's really cool that they used it in that way.
Yeah, it's great to be able to see the physical representation of just a flat 2D object. And as well as fighting like a random 6 of Plague or whatever, each level of the game builds up towards a face card. So you start out going up against the Jack of Dust, and each card you step on is getting you 1 step closer to like this boss battle with him and his band of ne'er-do-wells. And those boss fights are much more satisfying than boss fights normally are in video games. I think because they use the same mechanics as what you use. Like, the bosses don't have a weak spot you have to arbitrarily bash. They're really just bigger and tougher versions of those guys you've been fighting throughout the level, with a couple of special moves. Like, I think the King of Dust has a thing where he points at you and somebody shoots a cannon at you from off the battlefield, and this huge red circle appears, and if you're standing there, then wham, you get exploded. You can see that, and then you can bash like him or one of his guards into that circle, and then they'll get the cannon on them. So they are really neat boss fights because you don't feel like you're playing a different game all of a sudden. You're still using all of the skills that you've been learning building up to that against someone who is just a meaner version of the guys you've already been fighting, someone who's just a bigger jerk.
And it's great also that you build up a momentum as you play, and towards the end of the game you're getting not just beneficial cards, but you're also being like laden down with curses, and you carry these things into this final fight, and it can feel quite desperate. Certainly, like, I've gone up against the last couple of bosses where I've had like 8 different curses that have made it very, very difficult in order to do anything, and I've just been like, screw it, I've got to do this, or I have to go through that whole sequence again. And it's been so satisfying then to be able to like wrestle that victory away after all of that hardship.
Yeah, sometimes I've been running out of food cards as I get closer to the final battle, and once you run out, then you start losing health every time you move onto a new card. So you get to the final one and you're like half dead from starvation, and you just have to try to kill this guy before you drop.
Yep.
Which is great.
We've been talking about Hand of Fate, which is available for your computer via Steam. You can also get it on the PS4 or the Xbox One, and a PS Vita release is forthcoming as well. All right, well, that brings us to the close of our show, guys. As usual, thanks for listening. It's been a blast. Had a real good time here. Hey, right, guys?
Yeah.
Oh, always.
Good show, Ray. Well done.
Thanks, boss.
I'm sure the listeners appreciated it.
Hope so. So we'll be back next week at the same time. If you want to get in touch with us, recommend some music or just complain about the show, whatever, we have a Facebook page, which is ideal for that, facebook.com/zgamesau. Catch you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.